is the working definition of causal argument? Yeah. Okay, if then is a great way to think of it. If then or X causes Y, but you're almost there. What are you saying?
That there's a direct relationship between the two?
Yes. Another way to, I just typed that on my laptop. A way that we should express this is a causal argument provides the premise to support a conclusion about a cause and effect relationship. So in our reference to the DA, X is the cause and Y refers to the effect. Well, how does that work for plan-disad relationship? What is the causal relationship between the plan and the disadvantage?
Plan causes the disadvantage.
Okay, yeah, plan causes the disadvantage. My question is why? Why in debate, what have we learned about plans and how they cause disadvantages?
They trigger the link.
Okay, we can say trigger the link. The thing that I want to draw on there, Alex, is the term link, right? Because the causal relationship between the plan and the disad is the link. What connection or what premise exists for the plan to be connected to or linked to the disadvantage? Disads are really simple. I mean, if disads weren't in debate, I probably wouldn't be involved because I wouldn't get the rest of the debate. But debate to me is simple because there's a DA, which is something bad happens as a result of the plan. So the only thing I have to prove is A, why my disad has a cause and effect relationship to the plan, or moreover, why my link has a cause and effect relationship, and why that relationship outweighs the plan. That's it. Disads are a two-step process. I think your plan is bad, and it's worse than your advantages. That's it. That is illustrated in this really cool video right here.
So now the U.S. is like, fuck, we're dumbasses. Canada's like, what's going on, eh? Australia's still like, WTF. Mars is laughing at us, and some huge media is like, well, fuck that. So now we got nuclear winter. Everyone's dead except Australia. And they're still like, WTF. But they'll be dead soon. Fucking kangaroos. But assuming we don't blow ourselves up, us Californians just have to worry about California breaking off from the United States to go hang with Hawaii. Oh, that's good. The end.
Alright. That video, which is in the entire cause and effect of the relationship, demonstrates the absurdity of what we think about disads, right? Most of us, when we think about disads, are like, alright, there's uniqueness link, and then we have to race to nuke war, right? We have to figure out what about the plan causes us a giant catastrophe that is a nuclear winter, and then we all die. That's not what I want to focus on in today's lecture. It's not like how we can say there's a really big impact. I want to focus more on why the uniqueness and the link to the disad matter the most. We can always find an impact, and we can debate whether or not it's bigger than the plan, how it outweighs the plan, but more importantly, we have to have a connection to the plan before we have to worry about a big impact. Yeah?
Do you think the internal link is good? Think a good internal link to be good to explain?
Oh yeah. We'll talk about the internal link. An internal link which connects your link to the impact, we definitely need to have one of those. And like, the larger question like this video just shows us is that like when we talk about like nuclear weapons and who's firing them, we have to kind of say, let's take a step back here. It's not exactly how that works, right? Just because we possess nuclear weapons and China possesses nuclear weapons doesn't mean we're all going to die in like a fiery Armageddon, like missile, like what's up type day, right? Probably means that there's a risk of that happening. So disadvantages post the link are all a discussion about risk, probability, and other calculuses that we'll talk about. Okay. So, uniqueness. Here is the only definition you ever need to know when someone says, what is uniqueness? What will occur in the status quo? Uniqueness is defined as what will occur in the status quo. Another way that people like to say this is it's a snapshot of what's currently happening. Look, I can't stress this enough. That's why I put it in bold and underlined. That the uniqueness debate is extremely important. every dis-ad debate is going to come down to which side controls the uniqueness of the debate, or which side can better explain what is happening in the status quo. There are a couple things, 3 of them, that uniqueness evidence debate should focus around. The first is brink. Who can define to me when we say the term brink, what it means? Yeah.
On the edge. Like,
Okay, sure, brink is on the edge. A lot of people like to explain a dis-ad in the cliff design. Like this is like a large mountain or something like that. And here's a cliff, down here's like fire, death, you know, boom, we all die, like probably man-eating sharks, stuff like that. And so people say that, you know, here's a car and it's on the edge of the cliff, that's the brink, right? Because anything that goes over, we all die. So when we talk about the brink, this is, why is the status quo good but not guaranteed? We want to find evidence that says, stuff right now is pretty good, but it can go either way. You've seen this with like country relations dis-ads, where they'll be like, United States and China relations are okay, but it could happen one way or the other. Or you've probably had a politics dis-ad where someone's like, this is going to pass, but political capital is necessary. So Brink's just established that the status quo is good, but it's not great. Second part about uniqueness evidence is what we call post-dating, which simply means understanding that things change. Whoever has the newer evidence, or the most up-to-date evidence, can better describe what will occur in the status quo. The third thing is qualification. Who knows what about what's going on? A lot of times we forget to debate qualifications when it comes to uniqueness evidence, but it's extremely important. Why do you think it matters who or what institution is writing the uniqueness cards we're reading? Yeah, help me.
Because if it's like some random person writing in some blog about some politics ad versus someone that actually works in the government that's actually like writing about politics that uniqueness, you're gonna prefer the more qualified author.
Why?
It's the one that's more likely to be true.
Why is it more likely to be true?
Because you're dealing with someone that's in the field versus someone that's not.
So it's an expert in the field that might have more knowledge than just, say, the staff writer from the local magazine. I think that matters enough. What?
They know what they're talking about.
Sure, but I mean, you could do research to figure out what you're talking about, but qualifications matter because sometimes there's an inside track or there's things that we need to know, that there are things that they know that the average public doesn't know.
They have more insight.
Yes, insight is a great way to phrase it. I think that when you talk about qualifications, insight is the first reason why, you know, we should prefer particular pieces of evidence. We'll get to more parts about uniqueness as we talk about how to debate it, but this is the mechanism itself. This is what uniqueness means. Went backwards. All right, link. What's a link? We're to define link right now.
Connection.
What is it? A connection. What else? That's not incorrect. But is there another definition we can use?
The relationship between the av and the dis.
Yeah, a relationship between the planned and the disadvantage, the connection between the two. How I learned what a link is and what I think a great explanation is, what does the plan do that changes the status quo? So what is the definition of uniqueness?
What's happening?
What's happening in the status quo? The definition of link is, what does the plan do that changes that status quo? Look, our cliff design, or our cliff analogy right here that people always use. Look, we're on a cliff, if we fall off, we're dead, we're in a car. We know the status quo, we're right on the edge. The question is, how does this car get off the cliff? How does the plan push the car off the cliff? Maybe there's no longer a stop sign, and it just drives past. Right? Whatever's changed that makes that car go past, that's what the link is. Links create a cause and effect relationship. Who wants to say yes or no?
Yes.
Why? You're not incorrect.
I know.
The answer is yes. So you're going the right way.
Yeah. Since, I mean, the link should have a story of how these specific actions cause this specific impact. So the app should already do the action as explained in the link.
Yeah. Let me put this a little bit easier. The reason to why we want links to have a cause and effect relationship is because the explanation is so much simpler. when I can look at a judge or talk to someone and be like, look, if we do X, Y is a natural result. That causal relationship is what changes the status quo. If we don't have a causal relationship in our link, it's hard to prove the uniqueness debate, right? If we've told someone this is what we expect in the status quo, and we haven't demonstrated a cause and effect relationship, then why would the status quo change? Right? So that link creates the difference in the uniqueness debate. Without that cause and effect relationship, we don't have one. There are two types of links. There are external links, which is the argument that connects the affirmative plan or its effects to the disadvantage. So an external link is what you all understand as a basic link. It's just what connects the affirmative plan or the effects of the affirmative to the disadvantage. The second type is an internal link. This is an argument that connects the external link claim to the impact. So these two differences, the first one is a relationship to the plan. Then an internal link is the creation of the link to the plan to our impact. For instance, what people always say, so uniqueness, U.S.-China relations, good now. Plan hurts relations, U.S.-China war equals death. Right? That's this at, right? Uniqueness, link, impact. All three parts. What's my external link? Yeah, just this simple cause and effect relationship, that whatever the plan is, it hurts relations. What would be an internal link?
Relations are key to maintaining like the CCP's in the South China.
You're going way too far. You are correct. Well, how can we, what is a simple way to think of the internal link in this example? Yeah, just the warrant that connects these two, that somehow relations prevent conflict. Your example, Rohan, is not incorrect. It just becomes really long, right? It's just like, look, we have to have quality relations, or the CCP collapses, and if the CCP collapses, right? Those chains, the more chains we have in a disad, is that good or bad? Why is it bad, Alex?
It's less stable, it's a lot more holes that can go.
Right, the more chains in my disadvantage, the more likely it is that the affirmative team is going to point to those and begin to ask questions. So that's why disads, when you normally think of uniqueness, link, impact, we try to get smaller and smaller, right? But we have to be able to find out what that internal link is. When you are affirmative, these are questions you should always ask about. Whenever you debate a disad, immediately ask, whoa, what, yourself, what is the internal link here? If you can't think about it, it's time to point that out to the judge. In CX, ask a question that revolves around why this internal link exists. Impact. I didn't think I needed to define impact for you. Let's see, what's the easiest way for me to put this? The bad crap that happens as a result of the disadvantage. Negative effects produced by the plan, if you want to be all academic about it. Or we can just say the bad crap. There are 4 ways impacts are judged. And we'll talk more about these when we talk about impact calculus. The 4 ways disadvantage impacts are judged are magnitude, which is simply how big it is. So when we're talking about a war and I say magnitude, what's the first thing that pops in your head?
Boom, amount of deaths.
Okay, boom, the amount of deaths, like body count, right? Who's involved, right? What'd you say?
Its relationship to value.
Yeah, sure. So body count, who's involved, and so on. Time frame, how quickly? So when we talk about war and time frame, what are we talking about?
Who gets there first?
Yeah, this is where we talk about how fast the impact occurs. Like, look, in the U.S.-China relations example, if U.S.-China relations were collapsed, how long does it take to cause a nuke war? Right? That's what time frame matters. 3, probability. Simply means how likely it is to occur. How likely is it that the United States and China will fight each other using nukes? Why?
The
we're deterred. We're afraid to use the weapons because the death toll is so high. For sure. That means that that's a way to cut against probability.
It's just not economically.
What?
If it's just not, well, I mean, it's kind of bad thing.
Yeah, we're deterred from doing that. But think about it this way. A war between the United States and China is kind of likely by accident, right? We have resources in the South China Sea that serve as flashpoints for war. However unlikely you think it sounds that these two countries with their nuclear weapons can fight each other, there have been accidents that have caused conflicts in the past. When we talk about disads and probability, we usually draw on historical examples or accidents that make conflict likely. That's the two ways we access the probability debate. The fourth way that we talk about impacts and disadvantage debates is turn the case arguments. This is an essential argument in any 2 in C or 1 in R in 2015. In debate today, if you don't make a turns the case argument, it is very likely that a judge can conclude that the AF has a bigger impact. We must say that the impact of the disadvantage some way accesses the affirmative advantages. On this year's topic, what is the big generic advantage? No, disadvantage. Okay, there's a terrorism DA, right? What will most people say the impact to their terrorism DA is? They'll say that terrorism causes large war, right? How likely, with the probability of terrorists using WMDs, is this to happen? When people in these debates, oftentimes, doesn't the affirmative just read a ton of evidence that says terrorist attacks are unlikely? The way people will read the terrorism disad this year, they'll start off by saying this is the impact, but in the block they'll say that the disad causes a rollback of the affirmative. That even if the terrorist attack doesn't cause a big war, what it will do is freak people out. What happened after 9/11? I know you're really young. We talked about this in lab this morning. Right? It resulted in the Patriot Act. The Patriot Act is a result of 9/11. 9/11 didn't cause a large war that ended the world. We might have invaded 2 other countries, but we didn't use WMDs. But what it did do is create the structure and the panic that allowed the government to pass a Patriot Act. So this terrorism disadvantage, they'll say it turns the case because it causes the plan to be rolled back. Does that make sense? So while you just stood up in the 1AC and said, like, look, government surveillance is really bad for whatever reason, we should end it. The negative team will be like, yeah, you're right. However, your plan sparks a terrorist attack. Even if it doesn't result in extinction, it means the plan gets rolled back and now I have to win one small other disadvantage. What do you think that DA will be? Politics. The negative strategy this year will revolve around counterplan process, politics DA, and a terrorism DA. When the affirmative spends a bunch of time winning that there won't be a terrorist attack, the negative team will simply be like, you're right, thank you for spending 2 minutes reading those cards. The only result of the attack means that your plan will be rolled back. Now I just have to win a very small risk for my politics disadvantage. That's a ton of debates you'll be in this year. Yeah?
What if they win a lot of the uniqueness part of the debate, and then...
On the terrorism flow itself?
Right, if the affirmative wins a lot of the uniqueness part.
So you like to claim that a strike is likely? So even if the affirmative wins that, like, look, it's highly unlikely there'll be a terrorist strike, and they win that there's no impact to it, the negative will still make an argument that says, like, look, there's still a risk there could be, and if it happens, your plan is rolled back. So they'll go for a risk-style argument, but that's why when you do debate the terrorism disad, Alex, I think making those uniqueness arguments in combination with the impact defense is really important to mitigate the link turns the case argument.
I'm sorry, I don't understand how when you say rollback.
Okay, so plans don't actually get rolled back because of fiat, right? But imagine this. Okay, so if your plan is to decrease domestic surveillance, but the negative wins that a terrorist attack will cause panic in the United States, and as a result of that, Congress will pass new laws increasing surveillance. So even though it's not your plan that might go away, the new laws that the attack would justify are the exact same problem in the status quo.
That would justify the politics.
Well, it would mean that the politics DA is the reason to why the act probably loses because they don't solve it.
Rollback.
No, the act doesn't solve anything, so they have to win a very small risk from a politics DA.
is not used to counteract forms of terrorism, would that be a way out?
Okay, one more time.
If the affirmative argues that the form of surveillance that they're decreasing is not helpful or cannot be used.
Yeah, you're just making a no-link argument. Sure that you can mitigate the link of the disadvantage. That'd be entirely helpful. All right. So that is the 3 or 4 large parts of the mechanism of the DA. However, I want to talk about one thing that a lot of people kind of don't think about, but they should, and that is understanding that each part of the DSAD, each mechanism, includes at least an implicit uniqueness claim. So, what is uniqueness? What's our definition of uniqueness? What is happening now? First part of the DA, which is uniqueness, that's just the status quo, right? That's already a description of what's happening. How does the link have uniqueness?
It has to be true that it's possible for the app to cause whatever happens. So like,
Not in this case.
With like a thumper, like when.
Okay, so the way that politics thumpers work tests the link uniqueness. On this topic, which is the USFG should substantially curtail domestic surveillance, what is our link uniqueness?
There hasn't been domestic surveillance.
Right, link uniqueness is that that domestic surveillance is high now. The app can simply win that domestic surveillance is already being curtailed, which calls into question the uniqueness of your link. So each part of the DSAD begins to have uniqueness. How does our impact have uniqueness? I'll get to your question in just a second. So we understand regular uniqueness, right? We understand how we can have link uniqueness. What's impact uniqueness?
so like what weapons they have.
We'll attack now.
Sure, that impact uniqueness are things like, terror, threat high. Right? If we want to deny that, we simply say there's no risk of that. Understanding that each part of the DSAD has uniqueness is extremely important to winning the direction a judge will vote. A lot of people, when they talk about uniqueness of the DSAD, they use the words threshold and brink. But this is just a question of how much amount of a push we need to trigger a chain, or where we're at in that chain of connection. Those two terms aren't nearly as important. When you hear them, or if you're a type of person that likes to say no brink or no threshold, let's try to remove that from our vocabulary and focus more on the uniqueness claim, link uniqueness, and impact uniqueness. That's what we're really talking about. Alright, so that's the DSAD mechanism proper. Will, your question.
What is a politics thumper?
Okay, I want you to write that down. We'll talk about politics thumper in the politics lecture. So we start talking about that thumper now, we're going to get way off track.
Okay.
A thumper is just denying the link's uniqueness. So, that will sidetrack us, because that will cause a little. I'll talk to you right after we're done with this to answer that. Yeah, rub it.
One of politics, couldn't there be a link as well where it's like, I don't know if it's critique or it could be a link, but it's like taking away surveillance makes people feel uneasy, and thus the rollback of this rhetoric of being not safe.
Yeah, I'm sure you're making an argument that exists in the literature. You're just simply saying that when the affirmative team curtails surveillance, it actually a bunch of people will feel that they're not safe anymore because surveillance was good. That's kind of like the heart of the terror DA that simply says that surveillance is necessary to stop terrorism.
So running the politics DA with that would be good, because then the public would want to be no, we need more surveillance. That's why we need to pass all this
Yeah, that's why the plan would be unpopular, because in the public's eye, because the public thinks we need to surveil. Yeah.
Kind of on the flip side of that, couldn't there be a K that says,
Okay, I'll stop you there. There's a K that says everything.
just about the fear of having surveillance?
Yeah, I'm not even joking. That's totally a K. I mean, there's probably people that are right. Yeah, Zizek would probably be a great example. There's probably some TNG literature debate about that fear. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff.
Oh, sorry, to log on this question, how does that connect to the politics DA?
He's connected to the politics DA because he's talking about the uneasiness of the public. In the politics DA, you have links that are public popularity. If something's popular with the public versus something popular in Congress. And
Okay.
he's saying if a bunch of people want surveillance, then you can say that the plan would be unpopular publicly. And then you just have to read an internal link that's based upon public
Okay, and
popularity.
then we all.
Okay, first part about debating the dissat and the 2NC or the 1 and R is you have to read the 2AC. Always, and I mean always, read the cards the 2AC read. There are 3 reasons to why this is true. 1, why not? You have all the time to do it, especially if you're the 1 in R. You have the prep time the 2NC to use, the CX time of the 2NC, right? And the CX time of the 2AC. So that's 6 minutes, that's 14 minutes. Are you telling me it takes more than 14 minutes to prep your 1 in R? Impossible. That's all the time in the world. All right? So read those cards. Stop being lazy. You have to beat that evidence. Look at, as they're reading their evidence, most people do electronic files right now, read along with them. Right? Write on your paper what the argument was and then start reading their evidence. We do this, 1, to make sure their evidence is actually accurate, and 2, to find parts of their evidence that we can ask CX questions about. How many times have you been debating someone and their underlining stops, 3 sentences later starts again, and in the smaller part it says the opposite of what the underline says? All the time. It's your job as debaters to point that out. And when you do, judges are like, wow, that's great speaker points for you, bad speaker points for the other team. Yeah, Alexis.
Oh,
Are you ready to
I was.
stretching? Okay, cool. They look like you were pumping for a question. All right. Second reason why we read their evidence is comparisons. If you don't read their evidence, how could you possibly make comparisons between the two? Debating, as Steve said yesterday in lectures, is good. And the way we debate is to compare evidence. What our argument is, what the other team's argument is. If you haven't read their argument, how will you know if it's bad? How will you know if it's accurate? Right? So we have to read in order to make comparisons. Yeah. Third, your opponents are dumb. Their evidence probably is terrible. You should point that out. Should have wrote dumb opponents to make me laugh. You point that out. Okay. So first thing we do in the 2AC or the 2NC or 1 in R, we read the 2AC's evidence. The second thing we do is we extend our dissad with organization. We do this by signposting. Either by section of the debate or argument or the exact 2AC order. You have 2 choices, 2NCs and 1 in Rs. You can either extend the dissad by argument or section, or you can do it by the 2AC order. Do not try to do both and interchange them. Pick a way to do it. My preference is that we do it by argument or section. The reason is because some 2ACs are often all over the place. Okay, that's one reason. The other reason is judges, how you number arguments and how a judge numbers arguments might be entirely different. So if you just stand up there and say 2AC1, 2AC2, 2AC3, the judge might have a totally different numbering system. So let's try to do it by argument or section. This can be very simple, right? You can be specific to the evidence. For example, we could say uniqueness debate, group it. Right? So that all the uniqueness cards that are read by the affirmative, you could group them. Or you could say uniqueness debate, the Hill evidence, the Johnson evidence, the Alonzo evidence, the Jasmine evidence, right? Whoever the author is, we can refer to it by author, then make our arguments. Those are your choices. Either by argument section or numbers. Don't try to do some hybrid of both. Third, divide the DA into its 3 natural components: uniqueness, link, and impact. Do your work. If the 2AC makes uniqueness arguments, then link arguments and impact arguments, do the same thing. Do not try to fight the system and make impact arguments after link arguments, then go back to uniqueness. If you do that, judges are going to give you bad speaker points, and they'll hate you for the rest of your life. The second part, kind of joking about. Not really, I do hate you if you do this. 4, do not randomly put impacts on a flow. So many times I'm judging debates, and the debater's like, reading some uniqueness cards, and then randomly they read an impact, and then they read another uniqueness card, then they read a link card, and you're like, what just happened there? Don't do that, right? All of our impact work is done in one of two places. Either in the impact calculus at the top, which we'll talk about on the next slide, or on the impact debate proper, which the 2AC usually does on the bottom of the flow. The 2AC on every disad usually is like, here's some uniqueness cards, here's like a no link card, here's a link turn card, and here's our impact defense. Where the affirmative team reads impact defense, you can make your impact argument. But don't just randomly do it. Finally, don't make random link arguments. The quickest way to lose a debate is for you to make some stupid link argument that the affirmative team can then read a link turn to. Do not do this. It undercuts your credibility, and it risks the affirmative team making a link turn to a card you didn't really mean to read. The link debate we'll talk about in a little bit all has to happen in one section. At a minimum, no matter what the 2AC order was, you should extend all parts of the disadvantage. If a 2AC just goes to your DA and makes one argument, and it's like no link, you should still extend the uniqueness, link, and impact of the dissent. You can do it relatively quickly. Extend our uniqueness argument. Boom, X. They've said no link. Here's my answers. They have conceded the impact. It was this. It outweighs the case. Here's why. Right? We do them quick. Okay. Third part about being a 2 and C or 1 and R on a disad is impact calculus. There are two components to the disad overview / impact count. Every time you go for a disadvantage, meaning you're not going to kick it, but you're going for it, there are two components to your impact calculus. Component 1 is the impact calc proper. That is time frame, probability, magnitude, or turns the case. You do not have to do all four. Please, God, do not do all four. You do not need to spend 3 minutes talking about the impact calculus. You're going to get very repetitive. When we say impact calc, we usually pick our best argument and our second best. Whether it's, we know we want to make the turns the case argument, what I tell you earlier. Always, 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 always pick a turns the case argument. And then you have to pick a reason between time frame, probability, or magnitude that you outweigh the affirmative. Second part of the component is our uniqueness link argument, which is a short description of the DA, where you extend the author's names and qualifications. So all of our impact calculus can be pre-written before every debate. When you're sitting there prepping before your negative, you can write out all of this information, can you not? You know what your impact is. You know what the affirmative's impact is. You can figure out why it's faster or larger or more likely. You can think about how the DA turns the case. And more importantly, it's your own uniqueness evidence. You can write out the short description, so in the debate you don't have to do that. Remember, work you do before the debate is work you don't have to do in the debate. You have 5 minutes of prep time in some places in high school. You have 8 minutes in other places. That is crazy. If you're one of the places that only has 5 minutes, that's how I debated in high school. I swear, it felt like you had no prep time whatsoever. You'd get 10 minutes in college and it still seems like not a lot. Alright? So the more preparation we can do on the disad outside of the debate round, the better. Okay, I want to give you an example. So in the red here, let's say we're reading a TPA disad, the uniqueness, TPA passes now, that's key to the TPP, the impact is the TPA key to U.S. leadership in Asia, global economy. That's the disad that was just read. Here's my overview. Asia power competition is the most probable scenario for great power nuclear war, nationalist tensions, military investments, and territorial conflicts. Only the TPP solves by solidifying U.S. partnership and regional influence. Fast-track authority increases negotiation forward. That's loose and Campbell. Look, if we were going at our top speed, we could probably read this in what, 15, 20 seconds? And that's not even being generous, right? That's clearly enunciating. And in all that, we've extended our uniqueness argument. we've extended our internal link, and we've made an impact claim. That's how simple it is to write an overview. The next thing I would do is I'd read a new card that says, Asia escalates quickly and globally with nuclear weapons. Right? So now I've made my impact. The power competition war that's most probable happens really fast and goes globally. So not only have I made a time frame argument, but I've made a magnitude argument. And you can read a card there. And if you're really fast, you can read another card that says like economic decline sparks nuclear war. But if not, even if it was just this, first here's our quick extension, and then here's a new card. That roughly takes you 1 minute, you know? And you've already extended your uniqueness argument. You've made it by author name. So you're good to go. Make sense? Questions about the overview or impact cap?
Okay, so basically the overview is just like summarizing the entire debate, right?
Yeah, but I don't want you to think about it as an actual summation. A lot of people get stuck in the overview where they will just start talking and like 3 minutes later they'll be like, now on to the debate. And you're like, whoa, you've just like reread the whole dissect. You don't want to do that. You want to try to make it 2 to 3 sentences, right? Really quick, like here's a synopsis of my impact. Now, we said this is our uniqueness argument. Fast track authority increases no negotiations. Here's my impact author. Here's my whatever other author. That's I just randomly made those names up, so I have no idea. Yeah, go ahead.
Should the overview include like the answers to the answers to ask card too?
No, I don't think so. I think an overview is entirely separate. I think that first of all, you've written up. Here's your 3 to 5 sentences that you can read in 15 to 20 seconds. That's a synopsis of the disads, uniqueness, and impact claims. Here's a new impact card that escalates quickly. And right after you read the overview, you just say something, say, now the uniqueness debate. So, what I got used to doing when I was a 2N, and what I teach a lot of my debaters to do, is whenever you go to a dissad page, you give your order to the judge, right? You're like, I'm going to go politics, counterplan, case. So when you begin your speech, you just begin with, dissad outweighs and turns the case. Those words, dissad outweighs and turns the case, can be the intro to every dissad you ever go for. I know some people in debate that's all that, it's like they're machines, man. They're just like, dissad outweighs and turns the case, and they have like 3 reasons why, and then they're on to the next thing. Because that's just the way that they think about debate. This allows you to set that up. Here I've expressed what my impact is really fast, and I've extended the author's names, and I've read a new card that says that this Asian war escalates faster and goes global. Will?
How do you choose how to split up the block?
Okay, let me get to that question at the end, and we'll talk about that. Okay, so that's kind of like the 2Ns here, the 1 and R on the top of the dissad. So the next question is, how do we debate uniqueness? A lot of debaters, when they are debating the dissad, get bogged down in the uniqueness debate. We debate uniqueness in 4 steps. Step 1, extend the 1NC uniqueness with a short summary. Whatever it is, extend it. Step 2, make a comparison. Why is the neg better than the app? Why is my uniqueness card better than the affirmatives? First thing I do, extend the 1NC card, author's name, and what it says. Second thing I do, make an argument why my evidence is better than the affirmatives. Third thing, there are 3 ways you can make that comparison. You can do it by qualification or source, or what I think is best in uniqueness evidence is predictive versus prescriptive. Have y'all ever heard this term when we talk about evidence? Predictive evidence versus prescriptive evidence? Uniqueness evidence needs to be conclusive. Therefore, it needs to be predictive. Evidence that says this will happen, this is likely, that is all predictive. That is the gold standard uniqueness debate. If your evidence is predictive, it's better. Why? Why is predictive evidence better?
Because it's going to happen, like there's not a chance.
Right, it's making a claim. There's a chance that something else can, but it's making a claim that this will happen. Not this could, not this might, but this will happen. Evan, what do you say?
It's also like they provide a warrant for it.
Yeah, the warrant for why it's going to happen is what you'll explain. Versus predictive evidence or prescriptive evidence would simply suggest something should or will happen. So when we extend our uniqueness evidence, we want to say our evidence is predictive. Here's why. The affirmative evidence is prescriptive. Or we can say it's more recent. Recency and uniqueness debates matter. If your evidence is more recent, let the judge know that. Okay, the third thing we do in extending uniqueness is indict their evidence. First thing, what was the first thing? Extend our evidence by author name and what it says. Second thing, make a comparison. My evidence is better than the affirmatives. Third, go ahead and indict their evidence if you want. You can be like, their evidence is from Wikipedia. Their evidence is from jimmy'sblogspot.com. Jimmy's a 4th grader. Prefer my evidence, it's from Louie Petit. He's awesome. You agree, Evan? That's why your hand's up, right? What's up?
Is there a difference between that and the clause?
Not a difference between that and the clause. You don't have to do 2 and 3, but if you don't have a reason to why your evidence is better, then do 3, which is indict theirs. Debate's very simple. If you can't make an argument to why someone should prefer your evidence, you best make an argument of why someone should not prefer their evidence. Make sense? So do one or the other. You don't have to do both, but one or the other. And finally, well, I've already talked about 2 styles of indicts, qualifications or bias. Finally, read more cards. In uniqueness debates, the negative needs to read at least 2 or 3 cards in the block. You've read 1 card in the 1 in C, you need to read 2 or 3 more in the block to substantiate your uniqueness claim. Why do you think that's true?
If you have 1 card from the 1 in C, all the ath has to do is take out that 1 card and they probably have it.
Yeah, that's a game of numbers at that point, right? The other reason is because if you win your uniqueness claim, if you win the best description of the status quo, what does that mean for your link?
You control the direction.
You're exactly right.
You don't have to win a small risk.
Yes, very small risk of a link if you control the direction of uniqueness.
If you win the counterplan, solves majority of the affirmative.
Then it's game over, right? If you can win uniqueness in the counterplan, people don't even ask to see link evidence anymore. They're like, well, here's a counterplan. I guess any 1% risk of a link, and you're like, dude, I didn't even read a link, right? Because we don't even care at that point because we got a counterplan that solves the F, and you've won the snapshot uniqueness question. It's game over. So the more UQ cards that you can read in the block, the better chance is the judge ain't gonna look at a link card. It's all about the counterplan of the DA, right? I guess the one thing do you all know what evidence bias is? You know what bias is, everyone? That's a good way to indict someone's evidence, is to talk about why their author is biased. You know, if their author is writing specifically for someone, you know, for the government, and they're like, yeah, the government says they need more money. No jokes. The government always says they need more money, right? That's a bias.
So we debate this in the 2 and C or the 1 in R?
Yeah, the 2 and C, the 1 in R. Think about this as a 3 steps to extending uniqueness.
Okay, and that comes after the?
Yeah, that comes directly after the overview. When we do a drill later on tonight, we'll put all of this into action.
Okay.
So that's why we're taking notes now to make sure it all happens. Yeah, what's up, Rowan?
So I guess for step 4 as well, you kind of want more cards as well to show that it's actually happening. It's not just coming from one person. Right?
Sure. Yeah, you can read more. You can read more cards because you want to have author diversity, but it's mainly, as Alex said, look, if you can control, and Evan said this as well, you can control the direction of the uniqueness. The link question almost becomes not relevant.
Because there's a small risk of.
Yeah, because any chance there's a link, if you're correct on the direction of the uniqueness, what does it matter? I'll put it this way. It should matter, but a lot of younger judges have concluded that the opposite way. We'll talk at depth later when I talk about the affirmative on dissents next week about why negatives shouldn't be able to get away with this terrible style of debate. Okay, so how do we debate the link? We pretty much follow the same 4-step process. First of all, we extend the 1 in C card with the author's name. We immediately follow that with a warranted explanation of the link. First we have our overview, then the uniqueness debate, now the link debate. We extend the 1 in C link card. We want to do this by author's name, and we give a warranted explanation. We want to make this specific to the plan, not generic to the topic. Hold on real when we explain our link argument in the 2 and C or the 1 and R, it has to be to the plan, not the topic. There will be a lot of times that in this year's debate rounds where you read a terrorism dissent that's like generic, curtailing surveillance causes terrorism. That's a generic argument. In the 2 and C and the 1 and R, we want to have specificity of the link. Why does the plan, why does the small thing the plan change cause the dissent? That's where explanation and warrants are necessary on the link. What's up, Rohit?
So this is like separate than the overview itself, right?
Yeah, so check this out. Let me visualize this for you. So here's our sheet of paper, all right? So right here is the 1A flowed, the 2A flowed, and then after that is the 2 and C or 1 and R, however you want to do it, all right? The way this has worked so far is first we have our overview, right? And then we have the uniqueness debate, and now we're on the link debate. So normally, and I'm in your way, sorry. Normally in the 2AC, right, the 2AC will be like case outweighs, that'll be the first argument. The next argument is usually something like some advantage they have is really big. And then they're like non-unique, no link, no impact, right? So the way you divide this up is you have your overview here. It's kind of an answer to theirs. Then you have the uniqueness debate answers, then the no link answers. But what I'm trying to teach you when you extend disadvantages is to think of compartmentalize them. In overview is 1, uniqueness is 2, link is 3, and the impact will get to 4. Because I think what happens in a lot of times, especially with young debaters, let's say our flows aren't that great, we might miss certain arguments, but when we begin to think about the debate in sections, even if I miss a uniqueness card, if I group the uniqueness debate, I'm going to probably read a card that just might happen to answer theirs. So in the 1AR, when they stand up and they say, you dropped our Wilson evidence, you can be like, look, you're right, I might not have answered that evidence on point, but I read 2 additional cards that answer the claim your author makes. And every judge would be like, yeah, that's cool. You're right, you did answer those claims, we'll have that debate. Right, so that's why we want to compartmentalize the disadvantage. Does that make sense, Rohit?
Yeah.
All right, second, there are 3 link factors that we want to focus on. Whenever we talk about links, we should think about specificity, threshold, and diversity. Specificity is a link about the 1AC versus the resolution. Is it specific to the resolution of the plan? That's how specific our link can be. Second thing is threshold. Is the plan enough to change the status quo? And third type of link argument is diversity, which is different ways the plan changes the status quo. So every link argument we make falls into some category of these 3. Is it specific, threshold, or diversity? When we explain to the judge how the link operates, we want to be thinking about these concepts. How does the plan change the status quo? What are the different ways the plan interacts with the status quo? And is the 1AC a direct representation of the resolution? So, first thing we do is extend our link evidence, and extending the link evidence, we can focus on 3 different ways. The third thing we do is deal with the 2AC will say no link. We need to answer that argument. The way we answer no link arguments is to read the 2AC evidence, indict it, talk about why our evidence is better, and then read new link evidence. Extend your link argument. In extending your link argument, we immediately focus on 3 factors: the specificity, the threshold, or the diversity. Then we deal with the 2AC's response of no link. We indicate why that's not true, and we indict their evidence. Can we go to 5:20 or 5:30?
5:30 was when the schedule said.
I just want to make sure. Okay. I've just bombarded you all with a wealth of knowledge, which is more me teaching out of you. So now let's bring this back to questions and think about what's been said. Okay. Why do you think it matters to talk about the specificity of the link? Yeah.
Because if the app is tricky enough, they can say, we know what our specific form of decreasing surveillance doesn't interact with your DSAT.
Evan, you are 100% right. You began with tricky, and then you said the app would change stuff. Every 2AC, every good 2AC is entirely tricky, and every good 2AC will move around what their plan exactly does to the debate. The negative team's job is to figure out what tricks the 2AC might make, and figure out specifically what the plan does, how it interacts with the DA. If we can't figure out specifics, we can talk about the threshold. You're right. Even if our link card isn't specific to the plan, the way your plan changes the status quo is what our link is talking about. And if we don't have a threshold style argument, we can have diversity to that, which simply means the different way your plan changes the status quo, there are numerous different examples. Like you can say, like, look, you change the status quo this way, this way, this way. Even though your plan is really small, look at all of the changes that are made due to the plan. Those changes begin to articulate the way the link will operate in the debate. Right, if you prove the changes, then you have a cause and effect relationship, which then can demonstrate the impact of the disadvantage. Okay, so that's like the regular mechanisms of, I think, what's happening. There's a couple of things that are important to learn how to deal with, and the first is what happens in the event that a 2AC straight turns or impact turns your disadvantage. Okay, before we talk about that, how many of you can tell me what a link turn is? Okay, what is a link turn, Alex?
A link turn is basically saying that the affirmative doesn't actually cause the dissat to happen. It actually it's preventing the dissat from happening. So
Yeah, link turn in its most generic way possible is just we've turned the link. Link turn, turn the link, all right? So, let's think about this. Here's our link. Our link argument is plan, the link is, I want to use the terrorism dissent, so, plan decreases surveillance necessary to stop terrorism. That is our link. The uniqueness to the DA was that terror threats low now, and the impact is terror bad. What would be our link turn? What do we got to do to link turn this dissent?
Decreasing surveillance.
Terror threats good would be an impact turn.
Decreasing surveillance actually deters terrorism.
Okay, so you're saying that the link turn is actually that a decrease in surveillance is the way to stop terrorism, right? That terrorism happens due to surveillance. All right, so the first step to a link turn is for us to say the opposite of the link. Okay, that's true. Let me ask you this though. What if I, as the negative team after the 2AC says actually the opposite is true, that the plan, you said that the plan decreases surveillance, but that's not true. That actually the plan allows for more surveillance. So you've heard, like, what if I just say, okay, that just means there's no link.
I'm sorry, I'm a bit lost. Could you please go back? There was one of those, like, double negatives and a squirrel thrown in. I had no idea what you were saying.
All right, here's the point. How does uniqueness operate when we talk about link terms? What if I stood up, you've read the dissent, or I've read the dissent, all right? And you in the 2AC say, your link is wrong. The plan actually helps fight terrorism. And I stand up and say, like, fine, we don't have a link to the dissent. You're right, the plan is a good way to fight terrorism. The dissent, that just simply means there's no link, right? So how is that an offensive argument? Because what component is missing?
Uniqueness.
So if I want to win a link turn, what else do I have to do in the 2AC? What do I have to do to the uniqueness debate? What? Jasmine, you have not said the incorrect thing. You were pretty correct. What did you say?
Turn the uniqueness as well.
Don't think about turning the uniqueness. Remember, they said the uniqueness is that threats are low now. What if I read cards that says threats are high? Terror coming, right? So now I've said, look, my plan actually increases the chance we can fight terrorism, and terrorist threats are really high. The affirmative can't simply extend the no link argument then, or the link different argument, right? They have to answer the uniqueness as well. Does this make sense? Rowan.
Then I'm just gonna say in the context of politics, because that's like what I. But in the context of politics, then, don't people read the link turn and then they read? It doesn't matter anyway. It's not gonna pass and give.
Okay, check it out. I'll use your politics example. TPA will pass now. PC key. That's uniqueness. Our link. Plan destroys PC. The impact. TPA key Asian key to stop Asian war. Alright? The 2AC stands up and says, TPA not pass, TPA stalling, and plan key to boost Obama's PC. That's a link term, right? Why is this a link term? First, let's focus on the link. What's the difference between the link and the link term?
The link says that the plan is bad, and the link turn says no, the plan isn't bad.
Let's not worry about plan is bad or plan is good. What is the difference between the two of the link and the link term?
They're the opposite.
Yes, they're the opposite. The link says the plan destroys political capital, right? Not that the plan is good or bad, but the plan hurts the president. The link turn says no, the plan actually helps the president. That's the difference. Link turns are not about plan good v. plan bad. They're about the mechanism that is hurt within the plan. Either the president's political capital goes up or down. Not the plan being good or bad. So this is just saying the opposite of a link, right? If two people make two differing claims, it hurts his political capital or no, it doesn't hurt his political capital, those can cross each other out, right? So if this debate doesn't exist, the uniqueness debate, and someone just reads this link R card, this is like saying no link. It's saying, haha, no it doesn't. It actually increases political capital. So this link turn without uniqueness is like a no link argument. The way that we get it offensive is to provide uniqueness by saying TPA will not pass now. Why will TPA pass?
Because the plan will provide.
Why will TPA pass? It's not about the plan.
The political capital.
Yes, it's about the political capital. How does the president get political capital?
Through the plan.
Through the plan. So that is a link term. It provides uniqueness for the reason TPA can pass. It's no longer about the plan being good or bad. It's how the plan accesses, in this case, the president's political capital.
So let's say in the instance of the terrorism you said, where the uniqueness was terrorist threats are low now.
So we'll map this out again. So the uniqueness in that example that we're talking about is the app would come up there and say, U.S. winning war on terror now. Okay? And they'd probably say the warrant to that is like NSA bulk data collection, right? The link would be plan decreases bulk data equals terror unchecked. The impact would be unchecked terrorism equals lash out war. Does that make sense as a dissent? That dissent you'll hear a lot this year. It says, like right now, the U.S. is winning the war on terror. The reason we're winning the war on terror is because we're collecting data. We're doing domestic surveillance and we're finding out people are randomly calling places where there's terrorists, and now we can track it so we can prevent another terrorist attack. That's how we're winning the war on terror. The link argument is, hey, you stop bulk data collection, which means terrorists can go unchecked. We'll have no idea where we are at. The impact is, when we don't know where terrorists are, they obviously will kill us. Right? That's the DA. What's our link term look like? What's the first thing we need to do in order to win a link term?
Change the uniqueness.
Change the uniqueness. So what type of cards we need to read, Evan?
Terror threats are high.
Okay, we can say that terror threat's high. What else can we say?
US losing the war there.
Yeah. War on terror, losing now. What else can we say?
ISIS is expanding.
Sure, that's even more specific. ISIS expanding now. This argument that ISIS is expanding, why is that a good, non-unique argument in the event of the link term?
Because then you have like specific.
Yeah, you have a specific terrorist cell that you can identify, right?
And it helps, and it goes against any 2AC evidence that just talks about like generic terrorism.
Right, yeah, well, this is your 2AC evidence, so you need to go against your, right, yeah, I get it, yeah. It gets confusing in our examples, but yeah. So,
you prove that the status quo is not working against.
right, you're changing the status quo. That's what I want to bring you all back to. Remember what I said at the very beginning? The most important part is the status quo. These two separate uniqueness claims begin to change the description of the status quo. The team that can best isolate the status quo will win the uniqueness part of the DA. So what's our link turn part now?
Plan decreasing bulk data collection, which checks terror. Well,
Okay, the link is plan decreases bulk data equals terrorism goes unchecked.
Plan checks there.
Plan decrease surveillance decreases terror.
Yeah, you have to say something like bulk data collection equals too much paperwork, analyst quit equal terror network.
Where the hell are you gonna find that at?
Okay, so check this out. In my last lecture that I just gave about research and the topic, Sarah Reddy found a card that says that the problem with the new bulk data agreement is we're gathering too much about it. It's actually making finding true terror cell networks harder to locate. So the more data we collect, the more it looks like there's rogue terrorist networks, and we fail to focus on actual terror networks. That's this argument. That is a link term. The plan says that bulk data is good, checks terrorism. The link term says that actually, in gathering bulk data makes it harder for us to identify real terrorist threats. So now we have our link term, and it operates like this. Look, we're actually losing the war on terror now. ISIS is going to grow. Unless we can change our bulk data procedure, then they become a threat. That's a functional link term to a DA. Yeah. The link argument was that plan decreases bulk data, and bulk data was necessary to combat the war on terror.
So the link term was bulk data.
The link term is bulk data bad. Bulk data makes finding terrorist networks more difficult.
Oh, okay, so the argument is that the plan decreases okay.
Yeah, it's just the opposite of link, yeah.
so my question was, if could it be possible to leave the initial uniqueness as it is, and because terrorism, like in its essence, is like sporadic, it's possible that like there could be a terrorist strike without us finding it.
Look, dude, if we left the uniqueness without this, you just stood up and you said the opposite of the link.
That the app is able to help throughout terrorism.
Yeah, but the opposite of the link, right?
Yeah.
You've not contested the uniqueness. The app can just extend the uniqueness argument they've won that we're winning the war on terror now. If we're winning the war on terror now and we're collecting bulk data,
Really,
you don't have any uniqueness to your link term.
Really, I'm in it for the other uniqueness claim when you said terrorist threats low now, because with that one, I mean, yes, they are low, but if it's true that they are still around, then could that still be a reason why, like?
You were not incorrect. That would be a debate to be had.
Yeah.
You can make that argument. There would be counter arguments to that claim. Yes.
So it doesn't make it an effective. I mean, it doesn't make it not an effective argument. It just makes it with no.
It's just defensive at this point. If you don't do the uniqueness part, this is just like saying no link.
Well, it could be offensive, right?
No, this is entirely. This is not a reason to why you would win the debate. This is a reason to why the disad is untrue.
I mean, if you win that and you win that you are able to solve the impacts
But if you, Jasmine's like, damn it, what's going on? Then yes, that would be a case where if you want both components, then you've turned the dissent. Yeah. This is why we're going over our link terms again tonight, because they're such a difficult concept for us to like totally flush out.
Link terms aren't just on names.
Well, I mean, like link terms require uniqueness. If K has had uniqueness, then I guess you can link term them.
So the uniqueness defense will that would be defense, right?
Yeah, the uniqueness arguments alone are just defensive claims.
And then the link.
Both of these are defensive claims, but together they form an offensive argument. It's like, did you watch Voltron? No, Voltron was like,
Age of Ultron?
okay, Voltron is like if you combine all these things, they become one super thing. Yeah, if you combine uniqueness defense and link defense, they become a link term.
Ultron?
Ultron.
Looks like it's been rough day. All right.
Just all
So, okay.
Next lecture will be about F on the DA because we only got through like a third of this. Yeah. Oh yeah, this had to. I can talk for 2 weeks just for this.
We can just
Wait, this whole thing.
Can we just skip dinner and just have this lecture?
No, you should
No,
go to
I
dinner.
want to. Wait, the whole day.
Maddie will kill me if I don't let you out.
By the way,
It's time to go.
Yes.
Just make sure I'm on to this. So the original thing is political capital, you see that everyone's trying to change it by saying keep being good at passive capital and allow it to be a passive, therefore the thing.
Because the plan gives